Greetings. Greetings, crew. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. Cue the spooky music. Doo-doo-doo. It's not that spooky. It's just kind of regular stuff. Talking about, the regular insanity of the world and how it is growing ever more insane as we speak. Please remember to like the video to make sure that you are still subscribed. So a bunch of people here already early. Tailgate party, I guess, is what it is being dubbed. People in the chat early. I appreciate y'all showing up early for this gig. Raza starts it off with a great quote from Patrick Wyman. Crises like pandemics don't break things in and of themselves. They show you what's already broken. Boom, bam, bip. Or ding, 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 if you will. Yeah, just like, the Great Depression didn't just happen all by itself. It happened because there was massive wealth inequality and massive exploitation of workers and the working class. And the system kind of, imploded on itself. As it will, as it does. It's a cyclical thing. The stock market and or economic downturns have been proven to happen every, what is it, 8 years or something like that? It's like clockwork. Anyways. I already know. First order of business of the day. Our dear Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the race. I don't know what to feel about this. An overwhelming sense of not really sadness, although it is sad. Mostly I'm disappointed. Bernie Sanders just pretty much just rolled over. He just rolled over for the establishment. He just rolled over and took it. He just rolled over, and this is just him rolling over because everybody was like, why don't you get out of the race, Bernie? And even his campaign staff was telling him to get out of the race. And he just rolled over, which he did in 2016. And so, yes, I myself feel the sting of being a supporter and not necessarily a questioner of the campaign or the tactics. For a long time, I held out hope that this time would be different, that, somehow he had more momentum or somehow, his message and his momentum could carry him over the top. And when it didn't, it exposed his campaign and, unfortunately, the man, it exposed him for being what he is, which is basically, he's a lapdog or a sheepdog, even if you will, for the Democratic Party. So, his message is great. It's nice and progressive, but all it is in the end is a lot of words. It's just a lot of words. It's a lot of really nice ideas. He did actually make an impression on American life. He made an impression on the American political space. He did shift the Overton window to the left. He did push the conversation to the left. But again, all it was a conversation. All it ended up being was fodder for, the press, fodder for journalists to talk about. Are American minds shifted towards the left? Sure. However, Bernie is not going to be the one to lead you there. And it looks like some other, progressive leaders or potential leaders aren't going to be the ones to take you there either. So the fire was lit. And here's the thing is all of that discontent, the rage, the outrage, the feelings of betrayal by the establishment that Americans have been feeling for a very long time. Bernie just tapped into that. And it's unfortunate because the way that the centrists and the way that a lot of the mainstream media painted Bernie was that he was the rabble. He, put all these crazy ideas in people's heads. Oh my God. And the same goes with Trump. Somehow, Trump is responsible for, making people insane or making people feel, these anti-establishment feelings. And that's total lunacy and just dumb shit on so many levels, just to wrap it up. That discontent was already there. And Bernie tapped into it, and so did Trump. And that's actually how Trump became president. And, Jimmy Dore, again, did another really good video about Trump showing Bernie Sanders how to win a presidential race, basically calling that shit out. Calling these corrupt, bought and sold politicians out for who they are. Calling this, the establishment out for what it is. Calling the media out for what it is. I'm sorry if you're offended by Trump calling out the media. Keep on being offended. It's one of the things that he actually does right, because the media is actually full of shit, and so he has every right to call it out, and so do people on the left. The people on the left and the right have due course to call out the media for the lying pieces of shit that they are. It's just being used by the media themselves to go, oh my God, how, fake pearl clutching, fake outrage. Oh my God. How dare you call out the media? We're just the tellers of truth. No, you're not. No, you're not. Damian Gonzalez, revolution or extinction? Ding, ding, ding. Unicorn Riot is live with rent strike from autos. Awesome. I did not know that. Beauty. Well, hopefully, I'll get some footage of that, and we can cover that a little more. Bernie Sanders is out. It's a sad day. Kyle Kulinski had this to say: Bernie made a number of mistakes that I highlighted and broke down in detail. No excuses. Having said that, you're out of your fucking mind if you think I'll forget or look past Bloody Monday, aka the day Obama got Pete and Amy to drop and endorse Biden, saving his campaign. Well, yeah. So all of that did happen. I think there's, more than that happened. Honestly, there was too much fuckery, or there are too many inconsistencies around, some of the polls. This entire Democratic primary has been rife with, questions about what the hell went on. Starting with Iowa, starting with the very first one. So, people have a lot of questions about what actually went on in the polls. I do too. Did Biden actually win? Was he actually the winner? Did he win by the margins they said? What the hell went on there? And there's nothing wrong with questioning that. I have to disagree with Michael Tracy on that Biden just won. No, he didn't just win. A lot of people, and so, the Texas election officials themselves were like, oh, we need to recount some of these votes because this isn't right. We missed a bunch. Oops. Iowa caucuses fell into a state of complete chaos because of this app that, conveniently failed or malfunctioned that, Pete Buttigieg conveniently had a stake in. Oh my God. You can't just wipe that away or wave that away. Oh, no, he just won. No, he didn't just win. That's not how it went down. A whole bunch of shit happened and oops, he happened to, oh, look who's the winner. Oh my God. Kyle Kulinski goes on to say, I'm a social democrat, populist, leftist. Biden and the Democratic establishment are neoliberal corporatists. We simply do not agree on the issues. My coverage will continue to reflect that. And I think a lot of progressive lefties are saying like, okay, so we were let down. We were, misled. We were, duped. We were made to feel like this was we had actual leaders that were fighting for us. And, as it turns out, they've been exposed in a matter of a month, in a matter of weeks, been exposed by a pandemic and by, all kinds of, political happenings, to be not the leaders that we thought they were. So I think the progressive space, and I think people on the left actually have a lot of soul searching to do. And we also, I think organizing right now, I think right now is the time right now, in the middle of this incredible situation event that's happening, globally, but also definitely happening to the United States, and our economic system and our political system. I think this is the time to really, get pissed. This is the time to organize outside of the acceptable mediums, acceptable spaces. And, obviously the rent strikers are doing that. I think you're going to see more ways in which progressives and the left the disenfranchised left is going to, organize and make their voices heard. Microsoft Word technical support. We need to find strength, even if it's not from our leaders. Well, that, and indeed, exactly. Now, so look, Bernie could have, in 2016, Bernie could have jumped out of the race, ran on the Green Party ticket or ran independent, and he would have shattered the two-party system. And he blew it. He rolled over. He really let a lot of people down. He really crushed a lot of hopes and dreams for people because there was an actual movement, a groundswell. He had the moment, and he blew it. He blew the moment. And then here comes 2020 again, and he has this moment again, but the establishment was ready. They weren't ready in 2016. They didn't know how to handle it. They tried to cheat him. He could have left and said, "You cheated me. I'm going to go rogue and probably win, beat both Trump and Hillary at the same time." He didn't do it. So now here we go again in 2020. Here's this this crisis, this situation, this this utter chaos, this upheaval, this grand shift, tectonic shift, in the political and economic space. And here's another moment for him to go, here, I can blow up the system. Right now is a good time to blow up the system. And what does he do? He folds his cards and says, okay, guys, we got to unite behind the party. One of the most uninspiring moments. I heard his speech that he gave earlier, and it just sounded like blah, 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 yeah. I couldn't believe him anymore. I couldn't feel anything about what he was saying anymore because he doesn't believe it enough to actually fight for it. He doesn't believe it enough to actually fight for you. And so there you go. A sad day indeed, but actually it's a new day. It's a new day for the left to say, that's it. Alaric Harrison, new third party of progressives, fuck the corporate neoliberals. Also, Alaric Harrison, I don't fucking care. I'm not voting for a senile old fart neoliberal. Fuck Biden. Guess what? Alaric, I am totally with you. I'm not voting for that fucker. I'm a registered independent. I just, did a little crossover ballot so I could vote for Bernie. But my days of being a Democrat right now are over, are done. And so unless there's an independent candidate for president, I don't know that I'm voting for anybody for president. I don't know who I'm voting for. But it's not Biden and it's not Trump. So whatever. Anthony Gilbert, the only progressive party is the Green Party, period. Well, they are a progressive party. Right now, they are the progressive party. True. I don't know. I voted Green last time. I voted for Jill Stein last time. Will I vote Green again? I don't know. Maybe. I don't find a lot of optimism in voting for the Green Party, but maybe they'll get a little more traction this year. Anthony Gilbert says Bernie folded to the snake DNC. Trump will eat Biden alive, which is exactly what the DNC, a loyal wing of the duopoly servant of the empire, wants. Exactly. Summing it all up. In a nutshell, they want Biden they want the weak, frail, fragile Biden to just be a figurehead for the DNC, the corporate DNC party and they don't care whether Trump wins. They don't care. Why they don't care? Because they actually back all of his bills. They sign all of his, military budgets. They just signed, all of his stimulus packages. They said, here you go. Here you go. With barely a whisper of protest, with barely a whisper of dissension or, opposition. D-Truth says, who gives a fuck about politics when the world is going to shit? Well, I don't know. The entire world is politics. Everything is political. Your family, your relationships are political. Your family is political. I mean, we can call politics kabuki theater, which at the moment might very well be true, but I think, a protest is politics. Getting out in the street and saying, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's politics. So you kind of can't really get away from it, unless you just sit at home and sit on your hands. And even that's politics because you're just allowing somebody else to do the politics for you. That you're allowing somebody else to say, okay, I'll just make these decisions for you since you opted out of having any say whatsoever in these decisions. Osama, politics is the entertainment arm of the military-industrial complex. An excellent quote from Frank Zappa. Um, so Donald McCarthy, my goodness. That sounds very terrible. Why? Why would they do such a thing? So let's move on. I wanted to, in line with what we're talking about. I read through this article. It has its strengths and its weaknesses, but it addresses something that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how we're going to address this. The Democratic Party must harness the legitimate rage of Americans. So otherwise, the right will use it with horrifying results. Let me just take issue with that headline. The Democratic Party is not going to harness the legitimate rage of Americans. I'm sorry. So your premise in the headline is weak, if not absolutely laughable. It's not going to happen. The Democratic Party is not going to do that. Unless somebody, whether it's Bernie Sanders or somebody else, unless somebody actually takes on the Democratic Party establishment from inside the Democratic Party, unless you actually oppose the leaders of the Democratic Party, unless you actually take over the Democratic Party and mold it into your own image. But nobody seems to be able to do that. Everybody's playing respectability politics at this point. And fuck that shit. I don't care if you're Ilhan Omar or AOC or Bernie Sanders, whoever you might be, fuck that shit. Fuck not challenging the party. Ridiculous. Yeah, legitimate rage is actually, that's correct. Legitimate rage. But every time one of these people rolls over for the good of the party, or, oh my God, how dare you criticize Joe Biden? Oh my God, how dare you criticize the Democratic Party? Oh my God, how dare you, not vote blue no matter who so that Trump wins. I mean, all that's fake fucking outrage from these centrist piece of shits. So let's just kind of read through this. Political possibilities of the moment are different than anything we have ever experienced. We possess a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make the United States a more humane country. And Bernie Sanders decided, well, I'll just get out of the presidential race. But if we fail to seize it, we will face mortal danger from the right. That's not hyperbole. The anger of Americans, once they figure out what's being done to them right now, is going to be volcanic. The fallout from 9/11 and the Great Recession of 2007-2010 will be imperceptible in comparison. Not long from now, Almost everyone will have a family member or friend who died of CV-19, many of them suffocating in isolation wards with insufficient treatment, perhaps deprived of a ventilator that would have saved their lives. Huge swaths of the country are plummeting into desperate penury, even as they witness large corporations unlock the U.S. Treasury and help themselves to everything inside. Okay, that's already done. John Steinbeck's 1939 novel, The Grapes of Wrath, describes a similar moment. During the Great Depression, when people starved, even as orchards of fruit were burned to make the food that remained more profitable. We just read something about that already happening. Men with hoses squirt kerosene on the oranges, and they are angry at the crime, angry at the people who have come to take the fruit. There is a crime here that goes beyond denunciation. There is a sorrow here that weeping cannot symbolize. There is a failure here that topples all our success in the souls of the people. The grapes of wrath are filling and growing heavy for the vintage. We're about to live this again in more sophisticated ways. Then it was fruit being incinerated so no one could eat it. Now it's cheap ventilators that were never built. Because a company called Covidian, interesting name, Covidian. Did that happen after? Anyways, whatever. Worried they would compete with their more expensive models. It's not N95 masks. That's just a hell of a coincidence. My God. It's N95 masks that were not available because Donald Trump delayed invoking the Defense Production Act. In order to protect corporate power, it's tens of thousands of hospital beds being eliminated in New York and New Jersey. Because the surplus capacity cost money, some of those hospitals were turned into luxury condos. Now, as it was 85 years ago, human beings are being offered as a blood sacrifice to profit. Now, as then, the resulting wrath will be towering. What we know from history is that someone always shows up to harvest this level of ambient rage, but it can go in two directions. If people can be made angry at the crime, as Steinbeck wrote, there can be huge positive political changes during the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt and unions organized the anger and used it to create the New Deal. And the largest middle class in history in unluckier countries like Germany, Italy, and Japan, the political left failed. The fury was organized by fascists and directed at innocents. It's tough to be optimistic today that today's liberals can replicate Roosevelt's success. A corporate managerial legal class that operates the Democratic Party fears anger. So this is spot on, actually. The corporate managerial legal class that operates the Democratic Party fears anger and sees it as illegitimate as the basis for action. Yes. Having beaten back the threat of the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren presidential candidacies, both fueled by strong populist emotion, they dream of a technocratic politics purified of messy, fickle human feelings. Yeah, that's precise. But the American right specializes in the politics of anger. If the Democrats refuse to harness the legitimate rage of Americans and direct it at those responsible for our predicament, the right will make this anger its own and will win. To understand the stakes, briefly imagine the two possible versions of America 1 year from today with two different uses of anger. Let's start with the anger we need, the kind that clarifies and motivates and underlies all effective politics. I'm going to pause right here and also state a lot of channels have been playing this old Lawrence O'Donnell clip where he says, I used to work in the Democratic Party, and the only way that you're going to get them to change is if you threaten them by withholding your vote, by saying, I'm not going to vote for your bullshit. He no longer holds that belief or whatever, or he no longer actually voices it out in the open. But he's right on. And I think what we're really seeing or going to see now is a mass exodus from the Democratic Party. We're going to see, I'm gone. I think a lot of other progressives are gone. I think the Democratic Party is dead in the water. They burned their party down. They've already done it. And Bernie Sanders helped to do that. He helped do that by completely eviscerating people's hopes that, the Democratic Party could be changed. They can't. They cannot be. Not now. And nobody in the Democratic Party is willing to do that. So they're done. They are done. I think there's going to be a huge movement, progressive movement outside of the Democratic Party. And that's going to be that. So, this talk of the Democrats somehow harnessing this rage is a moot point. Blue 2021. So they're imagining what happens if Democrats or Joe Biden wins the presidency. Democratic candidate, likely Joe Biden. But we know anything can happen in U.S. politics. Beats Donald Trump going away. The winning Democrat slogan was fighting mad. It's laughable. And that was the core of his or her campaign, both the unabashedly mad part and the demonstrated willingness to fight based on that anger. The Democrat began the convention address either in Milwaukee or from his or her basement with no one within 6 feet by saying, I'm running for president because I'm angry. And if you're angry too, there's nothing wrong with that. Anger comes from the old Norse word that means sorrow. Every single one of us has known sorrow because of the thieves and incompetents who've been running this country. If you're angry, then join. If you're angry, I read that. You're an angry. I'm an angry. Then join me and together we'll take that trash out to the curb. This is completely comedy because, the Democrats aren't going to. Their Democrats are going to woke posture and woke signal and be like, we're best, we're better, we're morally superior to Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump is going to come out and go to Joe Biden or whoever, you're a rapist, lying, quid pro quo, double standard, hypocritical piece of shit. And everybody's going to go, well, fuck, well, that's it. Goodbye. The Democrat told the truth without trucking about who exactly was to blame for what had befallen them. The overall. So this should have been Bernie Sanders' campaign strategy, but he just decided not to do that. And why Joe Biden or any other establishment Democrat would suddenly take on this campaign strategy is also hilarious. They're not going to do that. The overall Democratic story could be understood by regular people because it included what every story needs: villains to be angry at and heroes to root for. And unlike the right's stories, the story was true. And we're all in this together, the Democrat declared. I think Bernie Sanders said exactly that this morning. Whatever. And what that means is that the people who are out for themselves are going to pay the price. When I'm president, we're going to put all the president's daily briefs online so everyone can see exactly how Trump screwed us. Politicians who made money off inside information on the coronavirus and profiteers who hoarded medical supplies are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail. Mobilized anger at the healthcare industry terrified Congress into passing Medicare for all. Mobilized anger at the country's poisoning by Fox News led to a congressional investigation of whether the network had knowingly misled Americans about the dangers of CV-19. The documentation uncovered became the basis for lawsuits that bankrupted and neutered Fox. Hey, sorry about that. Nobody ever calls me, but except for right now. That's funny because though, maybe they might be misleading people about the pandemic, but Fox News is actually telling more truth about the Democratic primary or the race than any of the other corporate media. And they actually tell the truth sometimes about war, way more than other corporate media. So I don't know, whatever. Mobilized anger created to see, they lie and then sometimes they tell the truth, and CNN lies and sometimes they tell the truth. Whatever. They're all the same. Mobilized anger created to see change in U.S. culture. The taboo against being honest about the anguish and failure all humans experience was shattered. Suddenly, Americans realized they were surrounded by suffering just like their own, and much of it was the fault of political choices rather than individually being losers. Although most Americans are going to realize that it's the Democrats and the Republicans, and so, screw them all. The example from the top made an entire young, tragedy-stricken generation see that being a liberal politician can mean being a normal, angry human being instead of a technocrat built in a Stanford lab. Suddenly, new potential candidates were showing up from unions and grassroots activists rather than elite law schools. Actually, that's going to be happening in another party. A third party will suddenly spring up with people from unions and grassroots activists and working class people. More than anything else, the liberal embrace of anger in 2021 transformed progressive politics into a movement that was serious about power. If there were no people who were truly dangerous, who are hurting us and rightfully deserved our fury, why bother getting out of bed to get power in the first place? And why wield it to vanquish your foes if we're all on the same team in the end? Anger finally unlocked a liberal capacity to tell the truth. I have to laugh because this is just the most ridiculous scenario because it's never going to happen. So here's something a little more realistic. Red 2021. Donald Trump was reelected. What stunned the Democrats, CNN, and the New York Times even more than Trump's victory is that he ran on the slogan, Healing America. even as voluminous, exquisitely researched media output demonstrated that its catastrophic mismanagement helped the coronavirus kill 1 million surplus Americans. It's a little bit hyperbolic, but if it kills 1 million Americans, I'm going to be like, what? I'm not saying it's out of the question, but I mean, that is just, we're not even at 100,000 people total worldwide. So, the idea that this is going to kill 1 million Americans, I mean, maybe, but it's not like we're not doing anything. Yet it somehow didn't matter. Trump and the GOP's mighty Wurlitzers settled on a suite of hazy stories, all of which the party's base fervently believed, even though they were mutually contradictory, such as there had been mass deaths, but they were the fault of Hunter Biden's friends in China. Okay. Shut up. Simultaneously, they argued that barely anyone had died, and the numbers had been wildly exaggerated by the media to hurt Trump. The suffocation of the country's small business could be blamed on Nancy Pelosi's bailout of big business and Wall Street. Big business and Wall Street had valiantly kept us alive. Despite the Democratic hate, well, this is also laughable too. Sorry. I read this the first time, I was like, The second time reading this is also ridiculous. And at the bottom of the right's food chain, there were constant whispers that brown people from New York had streamed out of their warrens to purposely infect the heartland. No, that's not happening, actually. Sorry. What the stories had in common was that they featured someone to blame, someone who could be a target of valid but misplaced rage. By contrast, the stories, well, that would be China. By contrast, the stories told by the Democratic candidate and the corporate press were accurate but had no villains and no heroes, and hence were not stories in the normal sense at all, just a complicated conglomeration of facts that looked good on a blackboard but had no heart. The Democrat candidate's quiet campaign refused to get exercised about much of anything. When the candidate was asked whether he or she would investigate Trump's dilatory response to the coronavirus at the beginning of 2020, the Democrat said, no, because I know Donald loves this country and even out of office will need his shoulder at the wheel to beat this thing. This sounds like Barack Obama or Joe Biden or even Bernie Sanders. What about prosecuting senators for inside trading? No, the candidate explained, because when I'm president, the country will all pull together again. Same people. With the terrifying resurgence of COVID-19 in the fall and the Democrats failing to secure universal vote by mail, that November saw the lowest turnout ever in a presidential election. The Democratic base, confused, demoralized, and frightened, didn't show up. Trump declared his. Sean Hannity began to declare each week, someone's got to shut it down. Actually, somebody does have to shut it down, as well as Sean Hannity. So both need to go. 2 days later, a gunman infiltrated Post headquarters and was stopped just before he could open fire. Trump was now free of all restraints, and he commenced an enormous bombing campaign against Iran. Protests were outlawed for public safety. Aren't they right now? Large numbers of Americans continue to die from coronavirus, although no one was sure exactly how many because the government no longer released statistics on it. Fox began quietly and then more and more loudly, claiming the opponents of the war were importing biological bombers from Iran to spread the disease. The stage was set for the classic collapse into authoritarianism, with official outside enemies purportedly collaborating with enemies on the inside. No one knows today which path the U.S. will take, but it's going to be one or the other. The right or the left will emerge as the champion of coming American rage. All we can do now is try to make the anger and its consequences rational based on an accurate understanding of the world and the unnecessary sorrow we experience. We need to make people angry at the crime. Okay. I don't know how you all felt about that. I kind of felt like that was a bit of like partisan woohoo, but there were some nuggets of fact in there. Somewhere in there, could we devolve into straight up authoritarianism? Totally. The stage has been set, not just by Trump, but by, everything that's happened since 9/11 has set the stage for, an authoritarian continuity of government scenario. That totally could happen, you know. And of course, you know, the left is, and the liberals and the Democratic Party are all going to be like, it's all Trump's fault. And they could be right on some levels, but all Trump's fault? I don't think so. I think it's, you know, the stage has been set again for a very long time. The Patriot Act set the stage, has set the stage for almost 20 years now, for handing off, you know, authoritarian rule to the president. And Trump is just the guy to use those laws that are already in place. The laws that the Democrats just helped renew. The Patriot Act was just renewed. The Democrats said, here you go. There wasn't any fight. There wasn't any resistance. There wasn't any no, sir. No, you don't. There wasn't any like, we have a problem with this. So, you know, screw your fake outrage and your fake resistance and your fake Democrats are the best-ish shit. Screw that. Is Trump a scary guy? Yeah, but you know the Democrats just hand him everything that he wants are just as scary. There's no resistance. Where's this other resistance coming from? Where's this other party that's supposed to be helping us out? This video has gotten long very quickly. So a few other things I want to cover, guys. So we've been discussing lack of aerosol masking effect or global dimming effect, possibly leading to an increase in temperature. Surface air temperatures for March 2020 are out. So there was some, and they look to actually be not, in some places, not as high, you know, not the highest that they've been. They're definitely above the March average for the period of 1981 through 2010. So temperatures are still higher than they should be. And there's been, you know, again, high, I'm sorry, you guys aren't seeing this, high temperatures over Russia. Svalbard saw low temperatures, high temperatures in the southeast of the United States. Generally average, or, you know, slightly higher in Europe. Colder than average in California on the West Coast. It has been actually quite chilly here. It's quite chilly here today. So I don't know, you know, I don't know what this means in the grand scheme of things. You know, we're still seeing high temperatures. Temperatures in March 2020 were above the 1981 and 2010 average over most of Europe. They were particularly high for the time of year over parts of Ukraine and Russia, but elsewhere were less extreme than during the preceding winter months. Temperatures were near or a little below average over the westernmost countries of Europe, rather unusually for recent years and more markedly than in January and February. Temperatures were below normal over and in the vicinity of the Svalbard archipelago, where sea ice extended beyond its 1981 to 2010 average limit. Unusually mild temperatures between Iceland and Greenland coincided with below average sea ice cover there. Well above average temperatures were not confined to Eastern Europe, but extended over all of Russia and many other countries in Asia and reached the western and northern coasts of Alaska. Temperatures were also much above average over Mexico and southern and eastern parts of the USA, over parts of South America, Central and Northern Africa, and Western Australia, and over and near the Ross Ice Shelf and Antarctic Peninsula. They were much below average over northern and western Canada, Greenland, and East Antarctica. Although temperatures were below average in parts of all major oceans, air temperatures over sea were predominantly higher than the 1981 and 2010 averages, especially to the east of Japan. So, not necessarily indicating that they're, not yet anyways, there aren't any indicators that there is a rapid rise in temperatures. Not right now. Again, we probably won't see conclusive data for at least another couple months. I don't know. So, so far, nothing definitive in that realm. I forgot to load up a video. Hold on one second. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it. I don't know. I'm going to have to show this video tomorrow, guys, because I don't really have it, and I don't want to fish around for it. But anyways, follower of the channel, friend of the channel, TCR got some footage of his local hospital where there was absolutely nothing going on. I'm just speaking briefly about this. There's been video out there of like hospitals in Brooklyn or hospitals in New York. There's one in Germany, from Germany. There's, all these videos floating around of like absolutely nothing happening at these hospitals where we're supposedly having this crush of people getting tested and this pandemic happening. I'm not saying that it's not happening. I'm seeing plenty of people that have symptoms who are stating on social media that they're sick or that they have it. They've been tested and they have it. And they're, talking about their symptoms. I'm not stating that this isn't happening. However, I'm just saying that these kind of on the ground citizen journalists or citizen videos are intriguing because are they saying that maybe it's not what it is, as bad as they're saying it is? I don't know. I don't know what the conclusion you want to take from this. Anyways, I'll queue up this video and I'll show it to you tomorrow. It's interesting in light of the fact that we have, news information coming out that, oh my God. And, clearly the United States is, high on the list with case 147 new yesterday. So, we have this situation happening. But does it jive, with these videos that people are showing? It doesn't necessarily jive. It doesn't necessarily line up. So what does that mean? I don't know. Just putting it out there for you to, draw your own conclusions with. I had a little bit of something. On Outrage, fake outrage, etc., there people had, some input on yesterday's video. I was just showing it for interesting information, an interesting informational view, not necessarily presenting everything there as fact, but, the guy talking about electromagnetic interference or pollution being a cause of sickness. That was actually the part of the video that I was most interested in. The fact that he brought up pollution, and not just environmental pollution, but electromagnetic pollution as possible cause for sickness. I think there's an interesting link there. That's all. I didn't agree with everything that guy had to say, but there seems to be in general this like, how dare you don't believe science, the media, government kind of like attitude. There's this thing about believe science, look, man, not all of science has been really great to human beings. And I think if you just kind of zoom out and look at history and look at, what science has brought to the world, yeah, science is good for figuring things out and trying to find out what the actual truth of something is. But just lockstep, knee-jerk believing science has actually led to a lot of like crazy shit, right? The knee-jerk believe science mantra is anti-science. That's not even how science works. Every theory or hypothesis is tested over and over again to gain better truth and understanding. Just always be willing to be as skeptical of your own thoughts and beliefs as you might be of science. I once reposted a meme by Guy McPherson that said something like, science because figuring things out is always better than making shit up. Okay, that's a solid message. However, as soon as I posted that, a friend of mine who is black posted some pics of Sarah Bartman. If you don't know who she is, Google, saying, remember when science told us that black people were 3/4 human? I was like, yeah, they did do that. The truth is science is responsible for some heinous shit. Remember Tuskegee? Nuclear weapons, exploding nuclear weapons in the stratosphere and the ionosphere. GMO foods. We can thank GMO foods for, thank science for GMO foods. Eugenics, mind control, weather warfare, environmental poisoning. Hell, you can blame science for climate change. Right? Science is telling us about climate change, but actually science pretty much produced climate change. Science, / technology. Unfettered technological advancements. Not listening to science in the face of these unfettered technical advancements, i.e. 5G. There's nothing wrong with being skeptical of science. Nothing wrong with being, you have to continually parse good science, bad science, harmful science, helpful science. Not saying reject outright. Just skepticism is completely acceptable and appropriate, right? Like, so if you question, somebody kind of like threw up some outrage about, how dare you question, where the coronavirus came from or possibly link 5G to, COVID. Why is that outrageous? Is it, I'm not saying that they're not actually sick. I'm not saying that there isn't an actual health problem. But like trying to get to the bottom of where this health problem actually came from, what's truly making people sick, I don't think that's not wrong on any level. That's not outrageous. That's not like, oh my God, how dare you? It's, kind of like when people were questioning 9/11, people were like, oh, what about the victims of 9/11? You're doing them you're disgracing them. No, you're not. Actually, you're showing that you care about what actually happened. You're caring more for the victims. You're caring more for people who are sick. Like, what's wrong with asking why people are getting cancer? People that live very close to freeways or very close to an electromagnetic radiation source, or people that live close to electrical wires. Like, there's nothing disgraceful, or disparaging, or wrong and having those questions. You're saying I actually care about these victims, like about why they're actually getting sick. You don't have to, again, disconnect, the victimhood or the fact that people are sick or dying or in pain. Questioning the reality of why it is they're in pain or why they're dying is absolutely a noble thing to do. It's actually the right thing to do. So, screw that fake outrage. Yeah. So, and to finish up that statement, here's an interesting little clip that somebody sent me from a U.S. senator raising the question of actual people who are in the 5G wireless technology industry. He's asking these people questions, and this is very revealing.
Interference possible. So I would think that some of those studies or some of that information could be utilized in looking at the health consequences. But no,
sorry about that.
These may show, and
they deserve also a commitment to do the research on outstanding questions. So my question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Berry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been complete?
Lowest interference possible.
So biological. So my question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Berry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
Hold on, I'll just stop that right there. I will stop that right there. There are no industry-backed studies, but we rely on what the scientists tell us, but there are no industry-backed studies. This happened in early 2019. So they're rolling out this technology without any studies on it. And that's totally fine. And you're not supposed to question, we're removing YouTube videos, or we're, demonetizing YouTube videos, or we're calling 5G, people who question the safety of 5G conspiracy theorists. We're doing all of that. But the actual industry is rolling out this technology without any investigation into the possible harmful effects of it. So that's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. That's insane. I don't know. I don't know what more to say about that. So, I think if you have questions about the safety of this technology, or if you have questions about it, if you're upset about it or pissed off about it, or skeptical or disgruntled or outraged or pissed off or just in a fucking rage, I think you're totally in your right mind to do that. Yeah, anyways, that's all I have to say for this video. I got a super chat from, hold on, way back here. On the Fence with Muzza, thank you for the super chat. Super chatting your question and support. Thank you so much. Judy Truitt said doctors also said it was okay to put x-ray machines in department stores to look at your feet. Indeed. Right. I mean, there were all kinds of things that went on, decades ago that now look completely ridiculous. I mean, how they used to treat women in childbirth was insane. They used to put them in all kinds of, restraints and contraptions and drug them up. That was science, that was science. Oh yeah, this is best science. Absolutely horrible experiences for women in childbirth. Back in the 40s and the 50s, cigarettes were okay for decades. Rosaremin, yes, indeed. What else? What else can we point to? Leaded gasoline was a thing. That they didn't understand was poisoning people, lead in paint. After lead was taken out of gasoline and paint in the 70s, they found that violent crimes decreased. Mental health disturbances decreased. All kinds of things happened in society because of lead in gasoline, because of lead in paint. It was causing, all kinds of biological damage in people. And it took them a long time to figure that out. But until then, science said totally fine. So again, science or lack thereof is telling us totally fine with all the stuff that's going on now. And so, I don't think that it's crackpot on any level to have questions. You just don't want to go over the rainbow with it. Evidence is always key. Evidence is always key, or lack thereof is always key. Evidence is always your friend, Lack of evidence speaks to probably not a strong case in supporting your position. An overwhelming mountain of evidence generally leads to a strong case in supporting your position. That's generally what I go with. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in the chat. It's been fun. The time went by incredibly quickly, and I didn't even get to cover everything I wanted to cover. Rich Diana says, new research says coffee's bad. Wait a month. Indeed. Anthony Gelbert, it's unwise to trust corporate-funded quote-unquote science. Right. The science that tells us that GMOs are totally fine. Totally helping, the human race go forward and multiply. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at the links below. Until tomorrow, same bat time. Peace.